7 NBA Finals, 5 championships, 3 straight appearances at the beginning of the decade, 3 straight appearances at the end of the decade. And right in the middle of it, the Los Angeles Lakers completely fell apart, rebuilt around Kobe, and somehow climbed all the way back to the top. When people discuss Kobe Bryant's career, we usually isolate everything. We talk about the 3 championships with Shaq, then we talk about the 2 championships with Pau Gasol. We debate whether Shaq carried Kobe. We debate whether Kobe could win without Shaq. We debate whether Kobe was overrated, underrated, inefficient, clutch, whatever the argument is on that particular day. But when you pull the camera back and you look at the entire decade, something incredible does happen. From 2000 through 2010, Kobe Bryant played in 7 NBA Finals. Think about that. Over an 11-season span, Kobe reached the finals 7 times. And if we specifically look at the 10-season stretch from the 2000 to 2001 through 2009, 2010, Kobe reached the finals 6 times and won 4 championships. His 7 finals appearances came across the 2000 through 2010 finals. Either way, the logical point remains. For essentially an entire decade, if Kobe Bryant's Lakers were legitimate contenders, there was an incredible chance they would go into the finals. And what makes this even crazier is where he had to do it. Because Kobe wasn't dominating a weak conference. He was playing in arguably the deepest conference of the modern era. Just take a listen to these names. The Tim Duncan Spurs, Steve Nash with the Suns, Dirk with the Mavs, Weaver with the Kings, the Trailblazers, Garnett on the Timberwolves, Yao Ming and Tracy McGrady, Deron Williams and Carlos Boozer, Carmelo Anthony. The Western Conference during Kobe's prime was absolutely loaded. And so today I want to answer a simple question. How did Kobe Bryant manage to reach 7 NBA Finals during this stacked era? Because the answer tells us a lot about Kobe, but it also tells us a lot about Shaq, Phil Jackson, Pau Gasol, roster construction, playoff basketball, and just how difficult the Western Conference was during Kobe Bryant's prime. And so with that being said, run the intro. Before we start talking about Kobe, we have to establish the environment. The Western Conference of the 2000s wasn't simply good, it was historically deep. There were seasons where winning 50 games barely guaranteed you anything. In 2008, for example, the 8th seeded Denver Nuggets won 50 games. Think about how ridiculous that is. You could win 50 games and your reward was the 8th seed. The Warriors won 48 games that same season and didn't even make the playoffs. That tells you everything. And the problem wasn't simply depth. The West had legitimate championship level superstars everywhere. You had Tim Duncan in San Antonio. Kevin Garnett spent most of the decade in Minnesota. Dirk Nowitzki was in Dallas. Steve Nash was running Phoenix. Chris Webber had Sacramento competing for championships. Later, you had Carmelo Anthony in Denver. Chris Paul entered the picture in New Orleans. Yao Ming and Tracy McGrady were in Houston. And the Lakers repeatedly had to survive this conference. That is important because finals appearances are not created equally. Sometimes a conference has 2 legitimate contenders. The Western Conference during this period routinely had 5, 6, or even 7 teams capable of winning 50 games. And somehow Kobe's Lakers kept surviving. And so the first final run comes in 2000. And let's establish something immediately. Shaquille O'Neal was the best player on this Lakers team. There is no controversy about that. Shaq won MVP. He was arguably the most dominant player in basketball. He eventually won Finals MVP. But Kobe wasn't some random passenger sitting in a back seat. By 2000, Kobe was becoming an elite 2-way player. And the Western Conference playoffs immediately tested them. They had to beat Sacramento. They had to beat Phoenix. They had to beat Portland. And that Portland series is extremely important. The Trailblazers were loaded. I'm talking Scottie Pippen, Rasheed Wallace, Steve Smith, Sabonis, Bonzi Wells, Brian Grant. I mean, that team had size, experience, defense, and depth. And Portland pushed Los Angeles to Game 7. The Lakers entered the 4th quarter down 15. Their season was basically slipping away. And then Shaq and Kobe helped produce one of the most famous comebacks in playoff history. Everybody remembers the alley-oop. Kobe drives, throws it up, Shaq finishes, the arena explodes. That moment basically became the symbol of the Shaq-Kobe dynasty. But the larger significance was this. The Lakers had survived their first real championship test. They beat Indiana in the finals. Kobe was 21 years old, finals appearance number 1. The following season is where things get scary because the 0-1 Lakers didn't simply win, they destroyed people. They swept Portland, swept Sacramento, and then they faced the San Antonio Spurs. This was Tim Duncan, David Robinson, a Spurs team that won 58 games. San Antonio had home court advantage, and the Lakers annihilated them. Los Angeles swept the Spurs and won the 2 final games by enormous margins. Kobe was spectacular in that series, and this is one of the playoff runs people should study when discussing a young Kobe Bryant, because Shaq was the interior monster. But against some Western Conference opponents, Kobe's perimeter creation became devastating. The Lakers team entered the finals 11-0. Philly stole Game 1 behind Allen Iverson. Then Los Angeles won 4 straight. The Lakers finished the playoffs 15-1. Finals appearance number 2, championship number 2, and Kobe was only 22. And now we get to Sacramento. And if you want to understand why the Lakers three-peat was difficult, go watch that Kings team. I'm telling you, Chris Webber, Mike Bibby, Peja Stojakovic, Vlade Divac, Doug Christie, Bobby Jackson. I mean, Sacramento was not some cute offensive team. They won 61 games, they had home court advantage, and they legitimately could have won the championship. The Western Conference Finals went 7 games. There are still controversies surrounding the officiating in that series, particularly Game 6, but I mean, whatever your opinion is about that, the basketball reality is that the Lakers had to survive an elite opponent. Game 7 was in Sacramento, on the road, overtime, and the Lakers survived. There's something we sometimes lose when discussing dynasties. Once you know who eventually won, history makes the rest feel inevitable. But I'm here to tell you that it was not. The Lakers were extremely close to being eliminated. They survived Sacramento and swept New Jersey in the finals. Kobe was now 23. He now had 3 championships and 3 finals appearances. But as we all know, this is where the story gets more interesting. Because if Kobe simply spent his entire prime next to prime Shaq, people could explain everything away. But that's not what happened. In 03, San Antonio finally got to them. Tim Duncan was phenomenal. The Spurs eliminated Los Angeles in Game 6 and eventually went on to win the championship. The Lakers then responded by adding Karl Malone and Gary Payton. On paper, this team looked completely unfair. Shaq, Kobe, Malone, Gary Payton, people called it a super team. But in reality, it was more complicated than that. Malone was 40, Payton was 35, there were injuries, there were tension, and Kobe and Shaq's relationship was deteriorating. Yet still, they made the 04 finals. To get there, they beat Houston, and then San Antonio, then Kevin Garnett's Minnesota Timberwolves, who had won 58 games. That's finals appearance number 4. Detroit then shocked Los Angeles in just 5 games. And after that, everything exploded. Phil Jackson left, Shaq was traded to Miami, the dynasty was over, and now Kobe had to prove he could build another one. And here's the part I think matters the most. Kobe didn't reach 7 finals with one continuous super team. There were essentially 2 different Lakers dynasties. The first was built around Shaq and Kobe. The second was built around Kobe, Pau Gasol, Lamar Odom, and eventually Andrew Bynum. Different roster, different hierarchy, different version of Kobe, different competition. Same result. That's extremely rare because after Shaq left, the Lakers were not contenders. They missed the playoffs in 05. In 06, Kobe had one of the greatest individual scoring seasons ever, but LA lost to Phoenix. In 07, Phoenix eliminated them again. And this is where Kobe's reputation becomes complicated. People sometimes look at those years and say, you see, Kobe couldn't win without Shaq. But if you look at those rosters, Smush Parker was starting. Kwame Brown played major minutes. Brian Cook, Luke Walton, these were not championship rosters. They were barely playoff rosters. They were barely NBA rosters. Kobe wasn't failing to win championships with elite teams. The Lakers simply were not good enough. And yet in 06, they came within 1 victory of eliminating a Phoenix team that reached the Western Conference Finals. And then everything changed. February 2008, the Lakers acquired Pau Gasol from Memphis. And almost immediately, everything clicks. This is one of the best examples in NBA history of a superstar getting the right co-star instead of simply another famous player. Because Gasol didn't need to dominate the ball. He could pass, post up, operate from the elbow, finish around the rim, play in the triangle, and most importantly, his personality complemented Kobe's. Kobe could remain the aggressive perimeter scorer. Gasol gave Los Angeles an intelligent interior hub. Lamar Odom could become the versatile connector. The Lakers suddenly had length everywhere. Kobe, Gasol, Odom, Bynum when he was healthy, Trevor Ariza, and later Ron Artest. Derek Fisher providing stability, and Phil Jackson running the triangle. This wasn't simply a talented roster, it made sense. That's an important distinction. And so, 2008. This might be one of the strongest arguments for Kobe's impact. Pau Gasol arrives during the season, and the Lakers immediately goes to the NBA Finals. They beat Denver, they beat Utah, they beat San Antonio. The San Antonio series is what matters. The Spurs were defending champions. They had Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and Greg Popovich. This was the defining organization of the Western Conference, and Los Angeles beat them 4-1. Kobe averaged roughly 29 points per game in that series. The Lakers were back. Kobe was back. Finals appearance number 5. Boston eventually beat Los Angeles in 6. And that loss became extremely important because Kobe had finally gotten back without Shaq, but he still hadn't won without Shaq. And that criticism still remained. And so the next season, people forget how much Kobe had a ride-in on the 2009 postseason. He had 3 rings, but Shaq had 3 Finals MVPs from those championships. Shaq also had gone to Miami and won another championship in 2006. So the narrative was obvious. Shaq won without Kobe, but Kobe hasn't won without Shaq. And Kobe knew that. The Lakers won 65 games. They beat Utah, then Houston pushes them to 7 games. And this series is another example of why the Western Conference was not easy. Houston lost Tracy McGrady. Then Yao Ming suffered a foot injury. And somehow, the Rockets still pushed Los Angeles to Game 7. The Lakers eventually won. Then came Denver. This Nuggets team was excellent. I'm talking about Carmelo Anthony was entering his prime. Chauncey Billups had transformed them. Denver won 54 games and reached the conference finals. This series was physical and competitive, and it was way closer than the 4-2 result would suggest. But Kobe was outstanding. Los Angeles advanced. Finals appearance, number 6. And then Kobe finally does it. The Lakers beat Orlando. Kobe averages over 32 points in the finals. He wins Finals MVP, championship number 4. And for the first time in his career, Kobe Bryant was unquestionably the best player on a championship team. That changed his legacy forever. And then came 2010. The defending champions now had everybody coming after them. OKC pushed them to 6 games in the first round. That Thunder team had a young Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. The Los Angeles Lakers swept Utah. And then came Phoenix. Steve Nash, Amari Stoudemire, Jason Richardson, Grant Hill. Phoenix had just swept San Antonio. The Suns were not scared of Los Angeles, and Kobe was incredible. The Lakers won in 6. That sends Kobe to finals appearance number 7. And waiting for him is Boston, the same organization that embarrassed Los Angeles 2 years earlier. The same franchise connected to the Lakers through decades of rivalry. I'm talking Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Ray John Rondo. The series goes 7. It's ugly, it's physical, it's defensive. When you think of 2000s basketball, you think of this series. Game 7 wasn't Kobe's best shooting performance. He went 6 for 24, but he also grabbed 15 rebounds, got to the free throw line, defended, and continued attacking despite the poor shooting. Pau Gasol was enormous. Ron Artest hit one of the biggest shots in Lakers history. Los Angeles survived 83-79. Kobe had championship number 5, Finals MVP number 2, and maybe the most emotionally significant championship of his entire career. And so how did Kobe actually do it? There wasn't one reason. It wasn't a combination of things. First, Kobe was incredibly durable during his prime. He played through injuries constantly. Finger injuries, knee problems, ankle problems, back problems. Kobe's willingness to play through pain helped maintain continuity for Los Angeles Lakers. Second, his game translated extremely well to playoff basketball. Playoff defenses take away easy offense. Transition opportunities decrease. Half-court possessions become more important. Teams learn your tendencies. And eventually, somebody has to create a shot against elite defense. That is Kobe's whole game. Post-ups, mid-range, pull-ups, footwork, fadeaways, attacking mismatches, drawing fouls. He had a counter for almost everything. Was he always efficient? No, we all know that. There were absolutely nights where Kobe shot too much. But his ability to manufacture offense when possessions broke down was incredibly valuable in playoff basketball. Third, he was an elite defender during much of his prime, really. Young Kobe could legitimately harass guards full court. He had size at shooting guard, quick hands, strong footwork, and when fully engaged, he could impact both ends. Fourth, Phil Jackson mattered tremendously. You don't reach 7 finals without elite coaching. Phil managed personalities, he managed Shaq and Kobe, he installed an offensive structure that maximized intelligent players. He understood playoff adjustments, and he had already proven with Chicago that he knew how to manage championship-level stars. And fifth, Kobe had elite teammates. We can't and we shouldn't run from that. Shaquille O'Neal, one of the greatest players ever. Pau Gasol was a Hall of Fame level big man. Lamar Odom was extremely versatile. Andrew Bynum gave them size. Derek Fisher made huge plays. Robert Horry made huge plays. Metta World Peace made huge plays. You don't win championships alone. Jordan didn't, Magic didn't, Bron, LeBron, Bird, Kobe, nobody did. The impressive part isn't that Kobe had help. The impressive part is what Los Angeles accomplished with that help. And so look at some of the players that Kobe had to go through between him and these 7 finals, right? Tim Duncan, David Robinson, although a little bit older, Kevin Garnett, Steve Nash, Dirk Nowitzki, Chris Webber, Carmelo Anthony, Yao Ming, Tracy McGrady, Amari Stoudemire, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook. And these are just the stars. Look at the coaches. Greg Popovich, Jerry Sloan, Rick Adelman, Mike D'Antoni, George Karl, Rick Carlisle. These were sophisticated teams with elite talent. And remember, there was no play-in tournament. There wasn't a thing back then. There wasn't an extra pathway. You had to finish in the top 8 and then win 3 Western Conference Finals playoff series. So if you want one team that defines Kobe's road to the West, it's San Antonio. The Spurs won championships in 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, and later on 2014. Tim Duncan is the greatest power forward ever. Greg Popovich is one of the greatest coaches ever. San Antonio was the model of consistency. And yet during Kobe's championship era, Los Angeles repeatedly stood between San Antonio and even more finals appearances. The Lakers eliminated San Antonio in 2001, 2002, and 2003, as well as 2008. And so think about that. 4 different playoff runs, 4 different Spurs teams, and LA beat them. If the Lakers don't exist, Duncan's resume potentially becomes even more ridiculous. That's the caliber of opponent Kobe was dealing with. And so let's address the obvious argument, right? Kobe only made those early finals because of Shaq. Shaq absolutely deserves enormous credit. From 2000 to 2002, Shaq was the Lakers' best player, period. But basketball isn't binary. Saying Shaq was better doesn't mean Kobe wasn't great. By 2001 and 2002, Kobe was already one of the best perimeter players in basketball, and some Western matchups demanded Kobe's creation. Then after Shaq left, Kobe eventually went to 3 consecutive finals again. That's what makes the full 7 finals powerful. If Kobe's resume ended in 2004, the Shaq argument would have much more force. But it didn't. He rebuilt his career, changed his game, became the veteran leader, and reached another 3 finals. And the Pau Gasol argument also needs context. So, the opposite argument is Kobe couldn't win until Pau shut up. That's true in the most literal sense. But again, nobody wins without championship talent. The relevant question isn't whether Kobe needed Gasol. Of course he did. The question is what happened once Los Angeles gave Kobe a legitimate championship roster. And the answer is devastating. Pau Gasol arrives in February 2008. From that point through June 2010, 3 straight finals, 2 championships. That is not normal. Most championship windows do not produce 3 consecutive conference championships. That fast, especially. The Lakers immediately became the most dominant team in the West. And maybe this is the most impressive part, because the Kobe who won in 2001 was not the same player who won in 2010. Young Kobe was explosive, athletic, aggressive defensively. He could attack the rim, run the floor, elevate over defenders. Older Kobe, he had lost some athleticism, so he became more surgical, better footwork, more post-ups, more manipulation, more patience, more counters. He basically reinvented himself, and that's one of the reasons his championship window lasted so long. The first dynasty required Kobe to complement Shaq. The second required Kobe to lead the offense. He succeeded in both roles. And this is why I think Kobe's decade deserves more attention. 7 finals appearances, 5 championships, and he did it during a period where his conference included another dynasty in San Antonio. That's crazy, because normally one dynasty prevents another dynasty from existing. Kobe's Lakers and Duncan's Spurs basically spent the decade fighting over control over the Western Conference. From 99 to 2010, the West was represented in the finals almost entirely by the Lakers and Spurs, with Dallas being the major exception in 06. That means an entire generation of Western Conference stars had their championship opportunities squeezed by 2 organizations, and Kobe was central to one of them. And so was Kobe's road harder than people remember? I think unquestionably yes. That doesn't automatically mean Kobe had the hardest championship path ever. Different eras present different challenges, but the idea that Kobe simply coasted through the West because he had great teammates doesn't survive scrutiny. He played elite teams, he played Hall of Fame big men, he played MVPs, he played deep rosters, he played experienced coaches, and he played in a conference with 50 wins, sometimes barely separated home court advantage from the bottom of the playoff bracket. That is not an easy road, and the Lakers still kept emerging. And so how did Kobe reach 7 NBA Finals? Because he had almost everything required for sustained championship success. He had one of the greatest peaks from a teammate ever with Shaquille O'Neal. He had one of the greatest coaches ever in Phil Jackson. Later, he had the perfect complementary big man in Pau Gasol. The Lakers organization continually surrounded him with size, intelligence, and championship-level role players. But eventually, we have to give Kobe himself his portion of the credit, because he was the constant. Shaq eventually left. The roster changed. Phil Jackson temporarily left. The Lakers fell apart. Kobe's role changed. His athleticism changed. The league changed. The Western Conference changed. And somehow Kobe ended up back in June. Again and again and again. 7 finals, 5 championships. 2 separate versions of the Lakers. And he did it while sharing a conference with Tim Duncan, Kevin Durant, Dirk Nowitzki, Steve Nash, Chris Webber, Carmelo Anthony, Kevin Durant. I mean, come on. That's what makes the accomplishment special. Kobe Bryant didn't dominate an empty conference. He survived a loaded conference. And maybe that's the best way to describe Kobe's career, because he wasn't perfect, his teams weren't perfect, his path was not perfect. But year after year, series after series, injury after injury, the Lakers kept surviving. And for roughly a decade, if you wanted to represent the Western Conference in the NBA Finals, there was a very good chance you eventually had to deal with number 24 or number 8 in purple and gold. And 7 times. Kobe Bryant was the one left standing. And so here's my question. When we talk about the greatest decade-long runs by an individual player, where does Kobe's stretch belong? Because 5 championships gets talked about all the time, but 7 trips to the finals while playing in that Western Conference, that might be part of Kobe's resume that doesn't get discussed nearly enough. And so if you like this kind of video, like, subscribe, because we just passed 100 subscribers and we're on the road to 150. Let's go.